I'm very glad that we stand here with Koen Vanderhoydonk. He's one of my good friends, but also the voice and the face of Regtech in Belgium and far beyond, thanks to his book, the Regtech Black Book. Now, Koen, as the chairman of today, what do you consider your key learnings of the banking scene in Luxembourg 2020?
It's a very good question. What I like a lot today is that the banking scene is alive. Very much. There's a lot of energy about innovation, there's a lot of energy towards technology. But then I learned that today it also boils back to trust. And I think trust is something extremely important if you talk about banks, because banking industry is built on trust. And I'm very glad to see that today the discussion is back on what is the fundament to me about banking. That's bringing back the trust. That's one element. On the other hand, I thought to myself, you just said that I love Regtech. Yes, I'm totally passionate and in love with Regtech, but I also started to realize during the conversations that the discussion that I'm having around Regtech is pretty much around trust too. So I found that kind of link with what I'm doing every day to the subject, the topic of today.
Now, as we said, you are the author of the Regtech Black Book. You just mentioned that the love of your life is Regtech, or one of them, let's say.
One of them, please.
Now, Regtech, it means that you're also to some extent outsourcing some of the key elements that keeps a bank strong, the backend, compliance, AML, etc. So you're actually also to some extent outsourcing responsibility as a bank, you could say. Now, how do you look at that statement?
If you look back in history, when we had the crisis, it was the regulator that stood up. I know I'm going to say some black and white stuff, so it's all in consideration and the world is always gray. But if you look at it that way, the regulator stood up and the regulator took control to a certain extent of the industry.
Right.
So how did you see that? It was that some micro-prudential view of the regulator suddenly changed into a macro-prudential view. So you were taking things to a different level.
Yep.
The umbrella was higher and higher. But if you look at Regtech and if you look at the 3 lines of defense model in a bank, then that still is very much the same. It's still very siloed to a bank. Whereas you think about a lot of topics like KYC or AML, how great would it be if you also alleviate that to the next level, if you could mutualize some of that thinking. So my view today is that there is a very important role for the regulator to support this new way of thinking, or this evolution, if you want, in the industry. And what I kind of find interesting is that you can already see that in countries such as Asia. To give an example, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, they already took in their hands the idea that we're going to be the golden source for KYC. So that to me means responsibility to the regulator. And I see early signs already also in other countries in Europe, which I really like. And I think that will mean that Regtech, in a certain extent, will become subtech, because that's where the magic still can happen.
Shared responsibility, shared opportunities.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to join us in discussion on trust, please join us in Amsterdam or Brussels.